In this next article from NPR, as U.S. views of China grow more negative, Chinese support for their government rises. Polls show widespread distrust towards China is growing in the U.S. over how China initially handled its China virus outbreak on outgoing human rights abuses. At the same time, Chinese attitudes towards the U.S. are souring, while popular satisfaction with Chinese state has grown since the central government quickly brought the pandemic under control through sometimes brutal methods. The recent trends in public sentiment run parallel to a dramatic deterioration in U.S.-China relations. A nationalistic official in each government play on popular fears and perceptions. U.S. levels of anxiety about China are at historic highs, primarily because they're engaging in cultural Marxism here in the United States, trying to take out the quote-unquote racist white man's culture. One technique that they use for cultural Marxism is they subsidize bad movies. So they'll take a movie character from a formerly badass movie with a white male character, and they will replace it with a minority or, they will replace the character with a minority or a woman, and then the movie will suck. It'll bomb. Nobody wants to go see it. And, but they don't care about that because they make most of their money in China. And then this allows Xi Jinping and the Chinese Nazi Party to control what movies become popular. Then it allows them to control what actors and actresses are able to come up within that social hierarchy. And then it allows them to do cultural Marxism in the United States by promoting actors and actresses that promote anti-racism, are against patriotism, they're against immigration restrictions, they're for illegal immigration. And so this is why Hollywood's gone so batshit crazy, is because you've got the Chinese government doing cultural Marxism through Hollywood. And all of these big Hollywood stars are lined up for the paycheck. They're all sucking Xi Jinping's dick. Every single last one, they're sucking the shit out of this guy's asshole. Like, got brown all up on the face, bro. And they're all about it. They love that Xi Jinping paycheck, dude. The movie could just bomb. It could be horrible. But they'll go subsidize it over there. So they don't have to make money here. This is the great thing about having the Chinese Nazi Party in control, is that it sucks. And the lefties just get whatever they want because you have to think the Chinese Nazi Party has to have some people that they're paying off to have on their side, that they give extra privileges to, that they wouldn't give their own citizens. So they basically are just paying off these liberal groups that are getting money from them in order to control them, in order to influence our politics and control our our economy. And it's all part of their plan to be the world's number one superpower. U.S. levels of anxiety about China are at historic highs. The latest Pew Research poll from July found 73% of American respondents have negative attitudes towards China, the highest percentage since Pew began collecting such data in 2005, when 35% of reported negative attitudes towards China. In a poll, 76% of the respondents said they put a, quote, great deal of fair amount blame, quote, for the China virus pandemic on how China initially handled its first outbreak. I personally think that they staged those scenes. I think that they knew that COVID wasn't very deadly, because when you look at the percentage of people that survive it are definitely flu levels. It's like 99 point some odd percent of people survive it. It's like 99.96% of people. It's like the same as the flu. But I think that they knew this ahead of time. This is my own personal theory. I don't have any evidence that supports this. But whenever they have those scenes of them fumigating, where they had the smoke with people in hazmat suits fumigating, I think they staged those. I also think they staged the building of the pandemic hospital. I think that they knew that it wasn't that deadly, but they were trying to create false fears in order to destroy the world's economy for their attempt to be the world's number one superpower. I think that they didn't need to build that pandemic hospital, but they built it as a sign of strength, it's called soft power, and in order to promote fear. And then also the scenes where they welded those apartment buildings shut. I personally think that they staged every last little bit of that to drum up fear in the international community, to bankrupt the world's economy. Because once you bankrupt the world's economy, then you can start swooping stuff up for pennies on the dollar. They got all kinds of funny money, dude. They got hundreds of millions of impoverished Chinese out in the countryside they use for slaves and a baby factory. You can't compete with China on that. They got slaves. In fact, the previous story was about the Uighur Muslims, and they're using them for slaves. And Americans are just buying this stuff. Black Lives Matter rioters and looters out here burning our cities down. They are all buying stuff made from slave labor from China, while they're accusing the white man of holding them down for their ancestors, or maybe even their ancestors weren't slaves. Because not all African Americans had parents who were, or ancestors who were slaves. A lot of them came from Africa, remember? So there wasn't actually that many people in the U.S. during the slave owning days. There was, I think, 12 million people total. And so the amount of African immigrants since then is a lot more than that. So not all African Americans where their ancestors were enslaved. So they want to blame the white man for all of the minorities in these big Democrat-run shitholes problems. It's the white man's fault as to why the black people aren't being there for their kids, why the houses are fatherless with single moms and are oftentimes dating really sketchy, skeezy drug addicts. Because the dad left and they're still partying and they never wanted to stop. That's kind of the life in the hood. But that's all. It's my fault. It's my fault that their houses are fatherless, because I'm the privileged white male and I'm the one that had it so good in the house where I too was also fatherless with a single mom. Just my mom wasn't doing sketchy drugs and banging drug dealers. What does this have to do with that? Trying to get back on track. Something about China. Back up. Negative attitudes towards China. Blaming something about slaves. I think we're talking about slaves. Yeah, that's what yeah, okay. So we're talking about how they use Uighur Muslims as slaves. And then I started going off on a tangent about how the African Americans don't say shit about the Uighur Muslims. And then they sit there and complain about how the white man's holding them down while they're talking on their smartphone made by slave labor. They never say anything about that. You ever seen a protest that was against brutality in China? In the U.S., have you ever even heard of a protest against the brutality in China? No, no. They don't care about the brutality in China. And the people who control them would not allow them to put out propaganda against the brutality in China. They wouldn't, because they're controlled by the Chinese Nazi Party. So we should have a very bad view of China. They're detestable. They're the Chinese Nazi Party. The socialists that allow private property ownership, that have millions of Muslims in concentration camps, that they have a surveillance state with a dictator trying to be the world's #1 superpower. They've been spying on our companies, stealing our intellectual property, doing cyber warfare operations to manipulate our psyche with psychological warfare operations. And they're shipping in boat tons of fentanyl to kill people with chemical weapons. So they use the illegal immigrants through the propaganda that's intended to prevent us from enforcing our border laws and removing illegal immigrants. Then they use that then to bring in illegal immigrants to to distribute the fentanyl that they're using to kill our people with chemical weapons. So that's how the cyber weapon works, is you can use the cyber weapon to deliver your chemical weapons, your biological weapons, and your psychological weapons. That's how the weapon works. In fact, I'm one of the people who discovered the weapon. I am actually one of the pioneer researchers that discovered this on Wikipedia. So we do need to crack down on China, because the people of China do not want to live in an authoritarian dictatorship. They want to be free. They're actually lovely people. And we probably have a lot more in common than we do apart, even though their language has these really funny symbols. I feel like they're computer nerds. I like computer nerds. But they're authoritarians. They've been brainwashed. So keep a safe distance, but still, they have a good culture. Their people are generally pretty friendly. Good people. But let's see, they did put it down in here somewhere. If you want to read the thing, you can. Yeah, real RSS commentary /Cale McCullough /issue 107, or at github.com/RSS commentary /Cale McCullough issue number 107. But they do specify down in here, you can't really trust any polls that come from China. They're saying they trust these polls. This is nonsense public radio. I don't trust anything from this news source. Just fair warning. I think that this is a fake news outlet, spews government propaganda. But they do claim, they do state it somewhere in here, saying that China people would be too afraid to speak out against the government if they knew that they were speaking out against the government, that they would target them. And it's because they're putting so much resources to controlling their public image that they would force people to say this. Well, they would give them special favors. They have a social credit system, so they would get more social credits for this. So you can't trust anything that comes out of China. You can trust it about as long as most of these Chinese products will last, and a lot of them don't have very good track records. So if you want to check that out, I'll let you read the rest of that. Let's move on